The numbers didn't make sense. Billions sent abroad while British families struggled to heat their homes, while hospitals ran out of beds, while schools crumbled. The committee room was packed that afternoon, every seat filled, cameras positioned strategically, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. This hearing was different. This was about priorities, about choices, about who mattered and who didn't. Jeremy Clarkson sat at the witness table, arms folded. His expression was controlled, but his eyes burned with barely contained anger. Across from him sat David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, surrounded by advisors and briefing documents. He looked confident, prepared to defend the government's foreign aid budget. That confidence was misplaced. The committee chair cleared his throat. Thank you for attending today's session examining the United Kingdom's foreign aid commitments and expenditure. We have Foreign Secretary David Lammy and Mr. Jeremy Clarkson. He adjusted his papers. Foreign Secretary, perhaps you could outline the government's position on international development spending. Lammy straightened confidently. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Britain has a proud tradition of international leadership through development assistance. Our foreign aid budget reflects our values and our commitment to global stability. He looked around the room. In 2025, we allocated £15 billion to international development, supporting education, healthcare, humanitarian relief, and democratic governance in countries that need it most. He paused for effect. This isn't charity. It's strategic investment. Stable, prosperous nations mean fewer refugees, less extremism, better trading partners. Foreign aid serves British interests. Clarkson remained motionless. Lambie continued. We're proud to maintain our commitment to international development even during challenging economic times. It demonstrates British values and strengthens our global influence. He sat back clearly satisfied. The chair turned to Clarkson. Mr. Clarkson, your response? Clarkson leaned forward slowly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried an edge that silenced the room. Foreign Secretary Lammy, let me make sure I understand this correctly. He paused. You spent £15 billion on foreign aid last year, while British pensioners froze to death because they couldn't afford heating bills. The room went completely silent. Lammy's smile faded. Mr. Clarkson, that's an oversimplification. Is it? Clarkson interrupted calmly. How many British pensioners died from cold-related illnesses last winter? Lammy hesitated. I don't have those specific figures. Approximately 4,000, Clarkson said flatly. 4,000 elderly British citizens, dead, because they couldn't heat their homes. He pulled a document from his folder. But you sent £15 billion overseas, to countries that include Pakistan, £500 million, Nigeria, £300 million, India, a country with a space program. He looked up, while British pensioners froze. Murmurs rippled through the committee. Lammy cleared his throat. Those figures lack context. Foreign aid addresses, complex humanitarian. Let's talk about context then, Clarkson interrupted. He pulled out another paper. NHS waiting lists at record highs, schools with leaking roofs, police forces understaffed, social care in crisis. He looked directly at Lammy. But £15 billion for foreign aid. Explain that to me. Lammy shifted in his seat. Britain's international obligations. Obligations to who? Clarkson challenged. To British citizens or to foreign governments? The room was tense now. A Conservative committee member spoke up. Foreign Secretary, how do you justify this spending when domestic services are struggling? Lammy tried to regain control. As I mentioned, foreign aid isn't separate from British interests. It's part of our global strategy, Clarkson repeated. Right. Let's examine that strategy. He stood up. The cameras tracked him. You sent £500 million to Pakistan, a country where the government owns palaces while their citizens live in poverty, where elite families educate their children in London while taking British aid money. He paused. How exactly does that serve British interests? Lammy's expression hardened. Pakistan is a strategic partner in a volatile region. A strategic partner that harbors extremism, treats women as second-class citizens, and has nuclear weapons, Clarkson said. And we're giving them £500 million while British women wait months for cancer treatment. The room erupted in murmurs. Or Nigeria, Clarkson continued. £300 million, a country with vast oil wealth, billionaires, but also massive corruption. He pulled out another document. This is from Transparency International. Nigeria ranks among the most corrupt nations on earth. Your aid money disappears into private accounts. He looked up. But British families choosing between heating and eating, not our problem, apparently. Lammy's face reddened. Mr. Clarkson, you're cherry-picking examples, am I? Clarkson challenged. Then let's look at the whole budget. He pulled out a detailed breakdown. £15 billion total. Of that, approximately £3 billion went to countries richer than many EU nations. £2 billion to countries with corruption rankings worse than Russia. He shook his head. That's not strategic investment. That's waste. A Labor Committee member tried to defend. Surely international development serves humanitarian purposes. At whose expense? Clarkson asked sharply. British humanitarian needs or foreign ones? He turned back to Lammy. Because here's what I don't understand. When British flood victims needed help last year, the government said there wasn't enough money. When British homeless charities asked for funding, you said budgets were tight. His voice rose. But £15 billion for foreign aid? No problem. Money's there. Lammy tried to respond. Domestic and international budgets are separate. Money is money, Clarkson said flatly. You chose to spend it abroad instead of at home. Own that choice. He sat back down. Tell me, Foreign Secretary, have you visited any of these countries you're sending billions to? Lammy nodded. Yes, I've conducted numerous diplomatic visits. How long? Clarkson pressed. How long did you spend in Pakistan, Nigeria, India? Lammy glanced at his advisor. Visits vary in length depending on diplomatic schedules. A day? 2 days? Clarkson pushed. Typically 1 to 3 days per country. So you fly in, meet government officials in nice buildings? Fly out, Clarkson said. Have you seen where the aid money actually goes? Silence. Have you visited the villages, the communities, the people supposedly benefiting from British taxpayer money? Lammy shifted uncomfortably. My role involves diplomatic engagement at governmental level. So that's a no, Clarkson said. You send billions, but don't verify it's being used properly. He pulled out another document. This is from the National Audit Office. They estimate 20 to 30% of UK foreign aid is lost to corruption, waste, or misappropriation. He looked up. 20 to 30%. That's 3 to 4.5 billion pounds every year. Gone. Wasted. The room was absolutely silent. But British pensioners freezing to death? British children in poverty? British hospitals crumbling? His voice was cold. Not enough money for them? An SNP member spoke up. Scotland faces similar pressures while Westminster controls foreign aid spending. Exactly, Clarkson agreed. Decisions made in London affect the entire UK, and those decisions prioritize foreign countries over British citizens. He looked around the room. Every pound sent overseas is a pound not spent here. That's basic mathematics. Lammy tried to regain ground. Mr. Clarkson, Britain's role as a global leader requires global leader. Clarkson interrupted. We can't even take care of our own people. What kind of leadership is that? He leaned forward. You want to lead the world? Start by fixing your own country first. Lammy's jaw tightened. That's an incredibly isolationist view. It's not isolationist, Clarkson said. It's prioritization. British government, British taxes, British citizens first. He gestured broadly. You can still help other countries. Nobody's saying don't, but not at the expense of people here. Not while British families are suffering. A Lib Dem committee member tried to intervene. Surely there's a balance. There is, Clarkson agreed. But £15 billion while domestic services collapse isn't balance. It's negligence. He turned back to Lammy. Let me ask you something personal, Foreign Secretary. Lammy tensed. Your heating bills at home. Do you worry about paying them? Lammy blinked. I don't see the relevance. Answer the question, Clarkson said calmly. Do you personally worry about affording to heat your home? A pause. No. Of course not, Clarkson said. You earn a ministerial salary. You're comfortable. Secure. He leaned back. So when you decide to send £15 billion overseas, it doesn't affect you personally. You're not choosing between heating and eating. You're not rationing electricity. His voice hardened. The people making these decisions never face the consequences. That's the problem. The room was heavy with tension. Lambie tried to respond. Government ministers don't make decisions based on personal circumstances. Maybe you should, Clarkson said. Maybe if you lived like the people struggling in this country, you'd make different choices. He pulled out another document. This is from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. Over 14 million British people live in poverty. 14 million. He looked up. But 15 billion pounds for foreign aid. Your priorities are clear. A young Conservative MP stood suddenly. My constituency has families using food banks, children going hungry. How do I explain foreign aid to them? Lambie tried to answer, but the room was getting louder. Another MP shouted, "My local hospital's closing wards. Schools in my area have no heating." The chair banged his gavel. "Order. This committee will maintain order." But the anger was real and building. Clarkson remained seated, watching calmly as frustration poured out. When it finally quieted, he spoke again. "Foreign Secretary, you said foreign aid reflects British values. What values exactly?" Lammy looked uncertain. "Compassion, solidarity, international cooperation." "What about responsibility?" Clarkson interrupted. "Responsibility to British citizens who pay the taxes funding this aid?" He stood up again. "Because from where I sit, your values prioritize everyone except the people who actually fund them." Lammy's expression was furious now. "That's completely unfair, is it?" Clarkson challenged. "Then explain why Afghan refugees get hotel accommodation while British homeless sleep on streets." Gasps around the room. "Explain why foreign students get NHS treatment while British pensioners wait years for operations." He pointed at Lammy. "Explain why billions go overseas while British children live in poverty." Lammy stood as well. "You're conflating separate issues. They're not separate." Clarkson's voice rang out. "It's all the same pot of money. Every pound spent there is a pound not spent here." The room erupted completely. MPs shouting, observers on their feet, cameras capturing chaos. The chair banged his gavel repeatedly. "Order! I will clear this room if necessary." It took several minutes to restore calm. When it finally quieted, Clarkson spoke one more time. Quietly now. "Foreign Secretary, I have one final question." Everyone leaned forward. "If you had to choose, and you do have to choose between helping a British pensioner heat their home or sending aid to a corrupt foreign government, which would you pick?" Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Lammy's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flickered to his advisors. 5 seconds, 10, 15. That's a false choice," Lammy finally stammered. "It's not," Clarkson said quietly. "It's the choice you make every day, every budget, every allocation." He picked up his papers. "British pensioner or foreign government, and you've made your answer clear." He looked directly at Lammy. "You chose wrong." Complete silence. Lammy stood frozen, unable to respond. The session ended shortly after. MPs filed out in uncomfortable silence. Journalists rushed to their stations. Within an hour, the footage was viral. Social media exploded with outrage. News channels played it on repeat. But one moment dominated everything. David Lammy, unable to say he'd prioritized British citizens. Jeremy Clarkson, having exposed foreign aid as a betrayal of struggling families at home. And across Britain, millions watching, nodding, finally hearing someone say what they'd been thinking for years. The government sent billions overseas, while British people suffered at home. The priorities were clear, the betrayal was complete, and everyone now knew it.